Sounds of chaos, shouting, a dog's frantic barks, the audio cuts. A dog's single act of loyalty became its death sentence. To protect his spiraling owner, Buddy gave a warning bite to a security guard. The consequence? He was seized by animal control and labeled vicious. The irony is that his owner, Art, started this entire chain of events just weeks earlier, with a single, selfless act of kindness, lending a stranger his only vehicle. Now he must fight to save his only companion from a disaster that his own kindness created. The silence in White Pine Creek was not empty. It was a heavy, weighted thing, pressed down upon the valley by the vast Montana sky. Arthur Riley, a man in his early 40s with the disciplined posture of his former military life, understood its weight. He lived by its rhythm. His partner in this rhythm was Buddy. Buddy was a 5-year-old German shepherd, his coat a thick mix of silver gray and white, his ears perpetually alert. He was not a pet. He was a partner. When Art split wood, Buddy sat watch, not idly, but with purpose. When Art checked the perimeter of his small cabin, Buddy walked heel, a silent four-legged shadow. This partnership was the anchor that held Art steady, especially during the dark days. Those were the times when the silence of the mountains felt too much like the tense, waiting silence of a forgotten watchtower, and the past threatened to creep in. On those days, Buddy would not leave his side, pressing his heavy head against Art's knee, a physical, living reminder to stay present. On this particular morning, the silence was troubled by a new sound, the high-pitched squeal of metal grinding on metal. Art winced as he tested the brakes on his aging pickup truck. The pads were gone. He had the parts, but he needed time, and time was exactly what the darkening sky threatened to take away. The forecast had promised a dusting. The sky, heavy and bruised, promised a wall. "Just need 2 more days, Bud," Art murmured, rubbing the dog's neck. Buddy responded with a low huff, sensing the anxiety in his human. The storm did not wait. It struck with the sudden violence of an ambush, faster than any forecast had predicted. By mid-afternoon, the world beyond Art's windows was a churning vortex of white. Hours later, deep in the night, a new sound cut through the howl of the wind. It was not a loud crash, but a dull, heavy thud, followed by the high, whining scream of an engine spinning uselessly. Art was at the door in seconds, pulling on his heavy coat. Buddy was already there, hackles not raised in aggression, but tense with alertness. They found the vehicle 50 yards down the access road, a dark blue luxury SUV hopelessly buried in a snowdrift. A woman was already outside, trying to dig with her hands. She was in her late 30s, her face sharp with intelligence. Her expensive wool coat and low-heeled boots were useless against the blizzard. This was Evelyn Hayes. She did not panic or plead. She spoke with a clear, sharp desperation. "I'm not lost, I'm stuck," she said, her voice tight. "I have to get to Billings. There's a data center. I have to retrieve a hard drive." She pointed back at her car. "I have a board meeting, a Zoom call, at 8 a.m. If I am not on that call with that prototype, I lose my company." Art looked from the buried SUV to the white chaos around them. Billings was hours away in good weather. "I can't help you," he said. It was not unkind, just a fact. "My truck is all I have, and her brakes are gone." Evelyn stared at him, the reality of her situation sinking in. She did not cry or beg. She just nodded, the color draining from her face. "I understand," she said, her voice flat. "I wouldn't either." She turned, defeated, to return to her cold car. Art felt a small, hard knot of guilt, but his own survival was too precarious. He couldn't risk his only vehicle. But as he turned to go inside, a low, troubled whine came from the doorway. Art stopped. Buddy had moved. The dog was standing in the open door, physically blocking Art's path. He looked at Evelyn's retreating figure, then turned and looked directly, insistently, up at Art. Art stared at his dog. This was not a request to play. This was not a warning. This was the signal. The all-clear that Art had trusted in far more dangerous places than this. Buddy was telling him she was safe. Art let out a heavy breath. "Wait!" he called out. Evelyn turned. He walked back to the hook by the door and grabbed his keys. "The brakes are soft," he said, tossing her the keys. "Pump them twice before you need them. The road is 2 miles north. Once you hit the county line, stay slow. She'll get you there." 4 days passed. The snowplows finally cleared the county road, leaving high, icy walls on either side. Art had spent the time repairing his fence and worrying. He hadn't worried about the truck itself, it was just metal, but about the imbalance. He had disrupted the order of things, invited the outside world in, and now he felt the silence of the valley holding its breath, waiting. Buddy, sensing Art's restlessness, stayed closer than usual, his quiet presence a comfort against the uncertainty. On the 5th morning, a sound new to White Pine Creek rolled up the access road. It was not the rumble of a logging truck or a tractor. It was the smooth, powerful hum of multiple high-end engines. Art stood on his porch, Buddy at his side, as 3 black SUVs, gleaming against the white snow, pulled to a stop. They looked alien, like pieces of a city skyline had broken off and landed in the wilderness. Evelyn Hayes stepped out of the lead vehicle. She was not the same woman he'd met in the storm. The desperation was gone, replaced by an aura of calm, focused authority. She wore a tailored black coat, and her hair was pulled back. A flatbed truck, the last vehicle in the convoy, pulled up. On it sat his old pickup. "Mr. Riley," she said, her voice crisp. "We took the liberty of servicing your truck. The brakes are fixed, new all-terrain tires, and a full tune-up." Art just nodded. He could see the deep black tread on the new rubber. It was exactly as the summary described, repaired and practical, not magically restored. He didn't like being indebted. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," she replied. "That drive saved my company. I'm Evelyn Hayes, CEO of Apex Dynamics." "I'm glad it worked out," Art said, his voice flat. He wanted her and her city presence to leave. "It's how it worked out that I'm here to talk about," Evelyn said, getting to the point. "Your action, it wasn't just kindness. It was efficient. It solved a complex logistical problem with a simple, human solution. My company is built on logistics, but we're missing that." She took a breath. "Apex is expanding. We need smaller, flexible hubs in rural areas. I want to launch the pilot program right here, in White Pine Creek." Art's stomach tightened. He looked away at the mountains. "We don't need a hub." "I'm offering you a job," she said, ignoring his deflection. "Not as a director, as a field consultant. You would oversee the site, liaise with local contractors, use your knowledge of this land to make sure it's not a mess." Art's refusal was immediate and firm. "No, thank you." He stepped back toward his door. "I'm not a corporate person, ma'am. I just want to be left alone." "I'm not asking you to be," Evelyn said, her voice sharp again. "Mr. Riley, this project is happening. My board has approved the budget. The question isn't if it happens. The question is how." She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. "The choice is this. I can send a team from Seattle who think Montana is just a pretty picture. They'll choose the wrong land, hire the wrong people, and disrupt this entire valley. Or you can be the one to make sure it's done right, that your neighbors get the jobs, that the site respects the land." Art froze. She had aimed her words perfectly. It wasn't a job offer, it was a challenge. She was asking him to protect this place, the very thing he'd been doing quietly for years. He looked down at Buddy, who was watching Evelyn intently, head tilted, sensing no threat. He finally met her gaze. "One condition." Evelyn waited. "He comes with me," Art said, nodding at Buddy. "Every day." Evelyn Hayes looked at the big German shepherd, then back at the man who trusted his dog more than the world. A small smile touched her lips for the first time. "I wouldn't have it any other way, Mr. Riley." The first few weeks were a strange adjustment. Art's office was the cab of his truck, with Buddy sitting sentinel in the passenger seat. He began work at sunrise long before the first video call from the Seattle headquarters. His new colleagues were the local contractors, men he already knew from the feed store and the local diner. With them, Art was surprisingly effective. The corporate jargon of the city team baffled them, but Art spoke their language. "They want the foundation poured before the next thaw," he'd translate. "It won't work. Tell them the ground's too soft." Buddy's presence proved just as valuable. The large, calm dog was a fixture on the site, lying quietly by Art's truck. The local crews, initially wary of the corporate project, saw Art and his dog and relaxed. They saw a man they understood. But for every problem Art solved on the ground, a new one emerged from the city. The architect's plans, drawn by a team in Seattle, looked beautiful on paper. "They've placed the main warehouse in the south field," Art told Evelyn during their weekly check-in call. "That's a floodplain. Every April, it's a lake." Evelyn had sighed, thanked him, and fixed it. But this efficiency put him on a collision course with someone else. His name was Marcus Thorne. He was a high-level executive at Apex, and Art knew him only as a sharp, impatient face on a video screen. Thorne, a man with a perfectly tailored suit and zero tolerance for delays, was Evelyn's primary rival. He made his displeasure clear. "Mr. Riley," Thorne's voice snapped during one call, his image buffering slightly. "Your local adjustments are costing us time. Your request for locally milled timber is denied. We will use our standard prefabricated steel. It's cheaper." "It's also louder," Art countered, his voice quiet but firm. "The sound will echo down the valley. The steel won't hold up to the ice shear from these winter storms." Thorne had dismissed him with a click. The next day, Art found his budget for local materials had been reallocated. Thorne was actively trying to make him fail, burying him in digital paperwork and scheduling mandatory video conferences designed to expose his lack of corporate experience. The final move came via an email. Apex Dynamics was holding a press conference and community meet and greet at their regional office in Billings. "To formally introduce the face of our new rural initiative," the email read. "Mr. Arthur Riley." It was a trap. His phone rang moments later. It was Evelyn. "Art, don't go," she urged, her voice tight. "This is Thorne's setup. He's inviting local media he knows are hostile. He wants to make you look like a fool to discredit me and the project." Art looked out at the construction site. The local crew was framing the first wall using the materials he had fought for and Evelyn had quietly paid for. He looked down. Buddy was watching him, that same steady, knowing gaze. "I have to, ma'am," Art said, surprising himself. He hated the idea. His stomach was in knots. But running felt like abandoning the men on that site. It felt like the old days, when he would retreat into the dark instead of standing his ground. "I won't be alone," he said, and reached down to scratch Buddy's ear. "We'll be there." The Apex Dynamics regional office in Billings smelled like stale coffee and industrial air freshener. It was a world of sealed windows and buzzing fluorescent lights that set Art's teeth on edge. Buddy, sensing his discomfort, stayed pressed tightly to his left leg, his tail low but still. They were directed into a large atrium, and Art realized too late what Thorne had done. This was not a press conference, it was an ambush. The space was packed, not just with local media, but with Apex employees loyal to Thorne. They swarmed Art instantly, a chaotic ring of bodies and cameras. The noise was overwhelming. "Mr. Riley, is it true you were unemployed when Apex found you? What qualifications do you actually have for this role?" Art tried to back up, but the circle tightened. The bright, repetitive pop of camera flashes began to drill into his eyes. Then, one voice sharper than the rest cut through. "I heard you're a veteran. Is it true you have PTSD? Is that why they hired you?" That was the word. The trigger. The noise of the crowd dissolved, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in Art's ears. The lights of the cameras were no longer flashes. They were a solid, blinding white. He stopped moving, his breath caught in his chest. He was no longer in Billings. He was somewhere else, somewhere dark and airless. But he felt the change instantly. The hand that rested on his head had gone rigid. He heard the sudden shallow gasp of Art's breathing. He didn't see reporters. He saw a threat. A deep, commanding bark erupted from his chest, a sound that demanded space. Buddy shoved himself forward, planting his body in front of Art's legs, pushing the closest people back. He barked again, a clear warning. "Get that dog under control," a man yelled. A large man in a tight suit, one of Thorne's aides, shoved his way through the crowd. He swiped a hand at Buddy's head, trying to bat him away. "Get back, dog!" Buddy sidestepped the blow, refusing to give ground. The aide, now angry, turned on Art. He grabbed Art's elbow, his fingers digging in hard. "Thorne is waiting. You're making a scene. Move it now." It was the touch, the rough, aggressive grab on his frozen human. Buddy's world simplified. Threat, protect. He lunged. It was not an attack. It was a correction. The motion was a silver-gray blur. The sound was not a rip, but a sharp click of teeth as he clamped down on the aide's forearm and released instantly. The man screamed and jumped back. "It bit me! He bit me! The dog bit me!" The room went dead silent. The aide, holding his arm, pulled back his torn sleeve. Just as the summary described, there was no blood, only the deep, angry red indentation of the warning bite. The chaos erupted again, this time in panic. Marcus Thorne appeared, his face a perfect mask of shock and concern. "Security! Call animal control. Now! We have a vicious animal." The words cut through Art's fog. Vicious animal. He looked down. 2 officers from Billings Animal Control were walking toward them, holding a long catchpole. Art was numb. He watched, helpless, as the loop was slipped over Buddy's neck. Buddy didn't fight. He didn't understand. He just looked at Art, his eyes confused, asking a single heartbreaking question. "Why are you letting them do this?" The moment the officers led Buddy through the closing doors, Art's legs gave out. The walls, the noise, the faces all disappeared. He had failed. He hadn't just lost his composure. He had lost his partner. While Art was fighting a bureaucratic war, Evelyn Hayes was waging a tactical one. Art found himself in the sterile beige waiting room of the Billings Animal Control Facility, a place that smelled of bleach and fear. He was filling out his 3rd form, his hand cramping. A shelter clerk glanced up. "The mandatory quarantine period is 10 days, sir. After that, a behavioral assessment will be made." "He's not vicious," Art said, his voice raw. "He was protecting me." "That's what the report says the other party said," the clerk replied, not unkindly. "Until that statement is officially changed, he's a potential bite risk. Next form, please." Art was in a cold, quiet hell, drowning in paperwork. Evelyn, meanwhile, was in a cold, dark server room. She had bypassed Thorne and gone straight to building security. "I want every angle from the atrium and the audio feeds from the B corridor, starting 1 hour before the event," she commanded a nervous security technician. For 20 minutes, she watched static. Then she saw it. 10:48 a.m. The hallway outside the atrium. Thorne, speaking to the exact aide who had been bitten. The audio was sharp. "I need him to look out of control," Thorne's voice said, casual and cold. "Get in his space. If he won't move, help him move." "Got it, boss," the aide replied. Evelyn saved the file. She didn't call her legal team. She walked straight to Marcus Thorne's office. He looked up, annoyed. "I'm busy, Evelyn." "Sit down," she said. She placed her tablet on his desk and pressed play. Thorne's practiced calm dissolved. The blood drained from his face as he heard his own voice. "This is not a negotiation, Marcus," Evelyn said, her voice quiet. "This is a list of your next actions. 1. You will call the aide, and he will immediately retract his statement, admitting he initiated aggressive physical contact. 2. You will issue a formal company-wide apology to Mr. Riley for the overzealous security detail. 3. You will transfer your entire remaining contingency budget for this quarter to the White Pine Project." Thorne started to speak. "You can't—" "Or," Evelyn continued, "this video file, along with my formal complaint of intentional sabotage and workplace harassment, goes to the board and our general counsel. Your choice." Thorne, his career evaporating before his eyes, stared at the screen. He nodded, defeated. He picked up his phone. An hour later, Art was still at the shelter when his name was called. The clerk looked surprised. "Well, the complaint has been withdrawn. You can take your dog home, Mr. Riley." Art was at the release gate in seconds. He heard a click, and the door swung open. Buddy trotted out, confused, his tail tucked. Then he saw Art. He wasn't just a dog, he was a gray and white blur, launching himself into Art's chest. A high, desperate whine came from his throat. Art fell to his knees, burying his face in the thick fur of Buddy's neck, one arm wrapped around his body, the other holding his head. He couldn't speak. He just held on, shaking. "I got you," he finally choked out. "I got you, Bud." The next day, Art was on a video call with the Apex board. Buddy was asleep at his feet, his head resting on Art's boot. A board member cleared his throat. "Mr. Riley, in light of Mr. Thorne's public apology for yesterday's incident, we trust this won't be an issue moving forward." Art leaned into the camera. His voice was steady, the tremor from yesterday gone. "What happened," Art said, "is that my partner defended me when I was deliberately targeted. This project is working because it's built on trust. Evelyn trusted me. I trust Buddy. And now, White Pine trusts us." He looked down at his dog. "I'm not a PR package. Loyalty is real. We will continue the work, but we will do it our way." Evelyn's face appeared in another square on the screen. "I agree. The White Pine model, based on that trust, is already our most successful launch. I move to approve its national expansion." Art and Buddy's story reminds us that in a world full of noise, the most profound connections are often silent. True loyalty isn't a grand gesture. It's the quiet, unwavering presence that stands guard when we are at our most vulnerable. If their journey moved you, we hope you'll share this story with someone who understands that bond. We would be so grateful to hear about the Buddy in your own life, so please leave a comment below. Your subscribes and likes are what allow us to keep bringing these narratives to life. And when you are ready, our next story is waiting for you, right here on the screen.